Story 1. I'm probably like a lot of former smokers who tried to quit several times before being successful. Then a friend and I were out fishing, and he began talking about quitting smoking. He wanted to bet $50 that he could outlast me. Beer drinking and trash talking commenced, and the bet increased to $500. I am way too cheap to lose a bet like that, so I went weeks without the cigarettes. My friend came around, admitted that he was back on the smokes, and paid up the $500. I was tempted to go back but was feeling so much better without the cigarettes, so I kept it going. Story 2. Drove 10 hours with my father-in-law in the car. He smoked a pipe and inhaled it. At one point, he coughed so hard he vomited out the window. Quit the next day. Story 3. I bought a pack of cigarettes, my last one, and put it in the bowl next to the door where you place your keys. When I was a smoker, I always felt more in need of a cigarette if I didn't have a pack. I sometimes went to buy cigarettes in the middle of the night just to avoid that feeling. I decided to stop 1 minute at a time. Each time I wanted to smoke, I would tell myself, in 10 minutes, if I still want to smoke, I will, and then just move on to something else. Usually, a couple of minutes later, the urge was not as urgent anymore. You don't have to think about an eternity smoke-free. You just need to take it 1 minute at a time. Eventually, it had been 3 weeks, and I wasn't about to ruin my efforts, then 3 months, then a year, and now it has been 7 years. I have one of those applications that tell you how much your health improves as you stay smoke-free. Another thing is that I kept hanging out with smokers. I wanted to stay exposed to my environment. So far, so good. I still get cravings, but I don't act on them. However, once a smoker, always a smoker. I could relapse if I start smoking again. Story 4. I am 4 years smoke-free. I have a serious mouse phobia. So, when I decided I no longer wanted to smoke, I would force myself to look at pictures and videos of rodents. My brain quickly started associating smoking with mice. Story 5. Dumbest and least relatable reason incoming. My housemate wanted me to smuggle cigarettes, but I didn't want to. So I said I'd very recently quit and didn't want to be tempted to smoke by having thousands of them around. So I had to keep up the lie at that point. Story 6. Went out one Thursday evening with some friends and friends of friends, back when you could smoke in the pub, got chatting to a girl, hit it off, and at the end of the night, said our goodbyes and parted with a vague plan to meet up again. Maybe next week. Friday lunchtime, lasagna and a pint with some of the group from the night before, when having a couple of pints at lunchtime was acceptable. I lit up a cigarette after eating, and the friend who had introduced me to the girl the previous night mentioned, "Oh, you know that girl you were talking to last night? She's not a big fan of smoking." I thought for a brief moment, stubbed out my Camel, crumpled up the packet that was left, threw my lighter, and have not been tempted to light up since. That was 1990, and this May we will have been married for 32 years. Story 7. Lifestyle changes. First, no smoking while driving and by extension while working. Second, no cigarettes at home. I had to pick up a pack before going to a bar or another smoking-allowed environment. Then I quit drinking. The hedonism of chain smoking and taking shots is too intertwined for me. Story 8. I read Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. I promise I'm not being paid for this. The comedian Paul F. Tompkins smoked for years but quit after reading this book, and would recommend it to anybody who wanted to try. I'm a big fan of his, so I decided it couldn't hurt. As soon as I started the book, I realized what it was doing. I figured I was way too smart for it and that it would never work, even though I understood the points it was making and the psychology it was using. I continued to smoke as I was reading it, as the book instructs you to do, and was absolutely sure the cute little tricks it was using would never work and that I had just wasted $10. I finished the book, threw away the unsmoked half of the pack I was on, and haven't had so much as a craving since. I don't even vape. I've had absolutely no cravings and no nicotine in any way for almost 10 years now. I cannot explain it, but it worked immediately, in a way that nothing had worked up to that point, and wholeheartedly recommend it to anybody who is serious about quitting. Edited to add, worth pointing out that it's not a magic bullet and it doesn't work for everybody. To paraphrase a reply, it seems most effective on people who have a firm commitment to quitting but just haven't been able to make it stick for whatever reason. If you've tried everything but nothing's worked and you really, Truly don't want to be a smoker anymore. It's worth a shot. Edited to add 2. I just turned off notifications for this post because I really need to go to work and I'm getting like 10 replies a minute. I'm glad so many people have experienced success with this book and that so many others are interested in it. If you have questions, just read it. Story 9. My grandfather smoked heavily for most of his life and suffered from dementia in his later years. My grandmother decided to help him stop smoking. One morning he went outside to his usual spot and his ashtray and cigarettes weren't there. He asked my grandmother, "Where are my smokes?" She replied, "Smokes? What are you talking about? You've never smoked a day in your life." He believed it. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind, I guess. Story 10. For me, it was taking one tiny step after another. Just go until lunchtime. Okay, now go until tea time. Great job, see if you can do a whole day. Fantastic, how about 2 days? Brilliant, now bet you can't manage a week and so on. That was 23 years ago. It was hell, but oh so worth it. I had a mantra that helped me in darker moments. I'd rather be 45 wishing I could smoke than 65 wishing I hadn't. Now I'm that 65-year-old, and I thank that former me every single day. Story 11. I convinced myself that it was gross. Do you have an old soda can of cigarette butts on your porch? Think about drinking it. Have you ever smelled someone who just smokes and drinks black coffee? They smell like literal poop. Think about that. It makes you smell poopy. Gross yourself out. Story 12. 10 plus years smoking 1 to 2 packs a week. Got sick with COVID-19. Couldn't smoke for 2 weeks. Got my taste and smell back. Now they disgust me. I take 0 credit here. Edit to add. I got sick with COVID-19 but not severely sick. I was vaccinated. Felt crappy for sure, but was not hospitalized. COVID-19 changed my taste buds or something. That's why I take no credit. I got the flu, and my body decided it hated them. Story 13. I met a girl who did not smoke. I decided that if I wanted to be together with her, I needed to quit. I still have cravings every so often, and I do occasionally have a cigarette at a party, but never more than once every couple of years. The moment I have it, I regret it as it no longer tastes good or feels good. It just makes my mouth taste like an ashtray and makes me queasy. I'm very glad for that fact if I'm honest, as it resets that craving for another couple of years. Story 14. I was honest with myself that it was just a habit that I didn't really enjoy. If I had nostalgia for a cigarette and had one, after smoking about half I felt a bit sick. It was my morning coffee and cigarette routine, so I just switched to coffee and Wordle, and it's all good now. Story 15. 5 degrees Fahrenheit weather in February, and I was standing outside community college and feeling like a real idiot. I thought to myself, what if there was some jerk of a boss who told me I had to stand outside for 5 minutes every hour, in the cold and heat and rain, throw away a quarter and get stinky? I'd tell him to kiss my ass. Well, that was my mentality. I got angry. I didn't quit completely, but I allowed myself 5 a day, then 3, then I stopped smoking in my car. I'd look at that cigarette I was holding between my fingers and get mad at this imaginary boss. Sometimes I wouldn't even finish it. I'd get my extra minty gum and head back inside. It took months, but I set an end date, and the day I graduated was the last time I had a cigarette, May 14th, 2003. Story 16. I saw the truth. I felt and tasted the decay and disgust in my body in a really deep way. Quitting was so easy to let it go after that one experience. If you really want to quit, you will. Also, psychedelics will often show you what you need to see in a profound way. Something to consider. Story 17. Similar to the mouse person, I guess, but every time I think about smoking, like, I really need to smoke, I replace smoke or cigarette with poison. So I'll say, I miss having poison or I need poison, all in my head, once you get past withdrawal, which lasts about a week. Story 18. I started smoking at 14 with the idea that I would quit one day. On my 28th birthday, I realized it had been half my life smoking. It took a few months of resolve, but I quit cold turkey and a few Nicorette in December 1988. Cleared the nicotine hurdle in a week to 10 days. The oral fixation took over a year to break. That was the toughest part of quitting. I still had cravings for cigarettes, but not the nicotine. Never went back because quitting was hard. Story 19. I got sick and felt awful. I generally felt like I was going to have a heart attack at any minute. The thought of smoking made me nauseous. A few days turned into a week, and I never looked back. Story 20. I smoked for 2 years, and last year I made a New Year's resolution to quit smoking. It was an abrupt resolution, actually, and up to now I'm smoke-free. Story 21. 2 things. First, I tried pushing my first cigarette back later and later in the day. It's surprisingly effective at cutting down. Next, I went through my triggers, the things that would make me want to smoke, and one by one I made rules against them. For example, I decided to stop smoking in my car. Then I decided to stop smoking after meals. I decided I didn't want to be known as a smoker at work, so I didn't smoke until after. And then I stopped smoking by myself. Eventually, triggers stopped generating cravings, and I was down to 1 or 2 cigarettes a day in the evening. Then I'd not smoke at all some days. From there, without any real triggers, I more or less just forgot to smoke. Story 22. My girlfriend at the time would not marry or live with a smoker. I quit 21 years ago, and we are about to have our 21-year anniversary. So I guess I did it for love. Story 23. Juul was invented. I had tried so many times to quit, even other vapes. For whatever reason, Juul did the trick. I switched from cigarettes to Juul, and then from Juul to lozenges, and then tapered off the lozenges until I was totally nicotine-free. I honestly never thought I could do it. Story 24. Smoked for 20 years. Got COVID-19 and was down for 5 weeks and did not smoke while sick. Decided to keep the streak alive, and it's been 4 years of not smoking. No longer crave cigarettes. Story 25. I was a smoker from 2012 to 2022. I tried quitting multiple times and used everything from gum to patches to quitting cold turkey. It was easy in Europe because smoking is cheaper, especially if you roll your own cigarettes. However, when I got back home to California, it was expensive to smoke. $12.36 for a pack of Newport menthols, which could give that good hit more than others. I wanted to date again, so I switched to vaping to get rid of the smoke smell. Unfortunately, I overused it, developed a blood infection from a hangnail, and my throat and chest became inflamed at the same time. I decided I would vape after I got better. After some antibiotics, Epsom salt baths, and a lot of rest, it took 2 weeks to feel better, and then I just didn't have the urge anymore. No itch, no scratch, not even a desire to buy any. When I smell it, it smells good, and I don't mind it, especially when I'm drunk. But I have no desire to smoke. So yay me. It's been 3 years now. Story 26. My neighbor followed me outside for every smoke and was so annoying that I just lost all desire. It was easier to just quit than it was to avoid her. It's been 3 or 4 years now. Story 27. Was on my way to bed at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning after a very long and hard but very fun weekend. Looked at the cigarette I was holding and thought, I don't want this. Last one I had. Didn't have any urges to have another. Didn't have any withdrawal. Story 28. It was simple. I smoked because I was insecure and fidgety. I met a girl who made me feel happy and secure. She never asked me to quit because she knew I would still be smoking. I threw away my last half pack and stopped hanging around smokers for about 2 weeks. Then I tried a cigarette again, and it tasted horrific. I couldn't believe I had ever smoked. It's been decades. Story 29. I was lucky to leave Ukraine before the war started. When it started, it was a lot of stress, but I thought that something saved me from the war so I could save myself from cancer. Story 30. I took advantage of my province's smoking cessation program. They cover a full round of patches, gum, and inhalers. I used the patches and haven't smoked in 9 years, other than when a buddy rolled a joint once and I was caught off guard. I was a heavy smoker too, close to 2 packs a day sometimes. Story 31. Nibbling whole cloves. It was tasty and a great distraction. And even to this day, nearly 15 years later, I still occasionally have a dream where I am smoking and wake up feeling so bummed that I slipped. Story 32, going to sound stupid, but since there is a ceremony to smoking a cigarette, you get the pack, get the lighter, put the cigarette in your mouth, get out the lighter and light the cigarette, put the lighter away, take a drag, etc. So you have to trick your brain when it wants a cigarette to have an alternate ceremony at hand. So the ceremony exists, but without the cigarette. For me, I decided to increase my water intake, so when I wanted a cigarette instead, I made my ceremony of getting a glass, dropping exactly 5 ice cubes into the glass, getting the water from a pitcher in the fridge, pouring the water, replacing the pitcher, slicing a lime, squeezing a wedge into the glass and slicing a section to slip on the lip of the glass. It's like retraining your brain into believing it had a cigarette, but instead, you introduce it to a new ceremony or habit. Story 33. I first had to break the association I had with smoking and drinking. If I was out with friends and started to get a cigarette craving, I stopped drinking. Chewing gum also helped with the oral fixation part of it. Every time I had a craving, I would chew gum, and it was also the smell. I like smelling good, and it is a pain to clean clothes so they don't have the scent. Exercising and diet changes also contributed.